Amity, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's been wild. There's not really a whole lot to talk about. I'm not sure what we're even going to get into in this episode. Before we start off, I want you to introduce yourself to my audience for those who don't know who you are.
Yeah, Amity Dolby. I'm on X, cyberbullying the government pretty much every day. Uh, former former Libertarian Party activist. I was part of the Libertarian Party of Virginia, uh, the chair for Congressional District 5. And I recently left the party and joined the Republican Liberty Caucus to try to insert libertarian ideals into the system, and we'll see how that works.
To say, how's that going for you?
You know, it's in its infancy, so we'll see how it goes. I'm really trying. I'm kind of a contradiction because I try not to get black pilled, and I keep telling myself there's no government solutions, but then I think about our future generations, and I want to leave the country better than I found it for my kids and for my granddaughter. And I just want to do whatever I can. And I feel like we're not getting libertarians voted into office, into federal office, through a third party. So if I can do that, through the duopoly, then I'm just going to give it a shot.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't like the categorization of black pill, though. For people that come to the realization, like I have, that there are no government solutions. Like those politicians don't have anything for us, right? For with respect to the future, I look at that as incredibly white pilled. Like that is a painful realization that we all must come to. Is like an acceptance of reality that we must. We got to swallow it because we can fool ourselves, and I think that today's, by the way, today the Trump tweet went out about the Epstein stuff that just absolutely broke the internet, and I think we are seeing the end of Donald Trump's administration unfold right before our eyes, right? So, and he was, what I think, with a lot of libertarians, I watched y'all before the election. There was a bunch of people that were supporting him, and there's like, I saw a lot of what I thought was delusion leading into this about who he was, what he stood for. And there's a lot of people that sort of, I felt, put their last little bit of hope in a government solution with Donald Trump and this incoming administration, this dream team, and Ron Paul's on board, Elon Musk is on board, all these people are on board, and oh boy, that took 6 months to completely fall apart in a catastrophic failure. So not to dance on graves, but I don't see there's a government solution. Tell me where I'm wrong, man. Like I don't. I'm always open to being wrong, but the more time goes by, the more I keep coming to this conclusion, getting reinforced that this is just facts.
Yeah, well, I was at the Libertarian Convention last year, and I campaigned for Joshua Smith, who is a more conservative leaning, libertarian, who actually has also joined the Republican Party. He's going to be primarying Joni Ernst in Iowa for her Senate seat next year. But I campaigned for him, and of course, he didn't receive the nomination. It was total shit show, and Chase Oliver ended up being our party's candidate. And so, like many others, I listened to what Trump had to say at our convention. I actually didn't attend his speech. I watched it with some friends from the hotel bar and made fun of him and laughed about it. But then after several months, I was kind of on the fence, and I'm like, do I vote at all? Do I write someone in? Do I vote for Chase? Do I, vote for Trump? And I decided, like many others, that the whole Doge bit was appealing. Anything that slashes government is appealing. So, he said he was going to free Ross. He did.
Amen to
But
that.
yeah, I mean, there were just several things that caused me to decide that, I was going to, vote for him. And mine didn't really matter. I'm in Virginia. I was hoping that our votes would our electoral votes would end up shifting towards Trump instead of Kamala, but it didn't happen. But I did vote for him, and things were looking really good in the first month or so. And
They were?
You know,
And please, like, this is
well,
not meaning to be overly negative, but I've been looking and I've been asking people because people keep saying this a lot. I hear this trope like, "Oh, there was so much good, and why are you focusing on the bad?" Whether it be the continuing resolution that passed that Thomas Massie opposed, whether that be the big beautiful bill, like what I keep hearing people make this claim, like, "Man, there's been so many wins," and I try to be objective and I try to be fair to everyone. I don't see them. What are they?
yeah. So when I say things were looking good, so he did free Ross, and then it looked like he was working out a peace deal in Gaza. Everything that was looking good in the first month has definitely not come to fruition. I mean, certainly the continuing resolution was just, I mean, how you can, everybody's saying, you know, oh, well, we didn't have time to cut Biden's spending. I mean, come on. So
This is the
while
problem. Sorry to interrupt, but this is the problem.
yeah,
I'm an old dude, man. I just turned 50 this year. I've seen this show so many times. It is always the same thing. You get somebody is elected, it's particularly if Republicans get a majority in Congress and hold the presidency. It's like, well, we can't do it now because reasons. We have to do it later. So let's pass this now. And we promise, pinky swear, we're going to cut spending in the future. We really promise, right? And it never comes. It's all bullshit. It is complete bullshit, top to bottom. I've seen it so many times. They're not serious. And that's, I guess, my problem with any political party is that they're just not serious about doing it. And I also think, and this is a really unpopular opinion in my circles, is that Americans don't want spending cut and they don't like freedom. And that's a painful thing for me to have to come to grips with, but I promise you, like, I've done everything I can to avoid accepting that reality, but it's like true. Like, I'm an empiricist. I look at the evidence, I talk to people, and like they just don't want it. They'll make some noises. Some Republicans will squeak a little bit and they'll say these things like, we really want to cut spending for, but if you ask them questions specifically, it's like, okay, so you cool with cutting the military? No, 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 no. We can't cut the military. We need a bigger budget for the military. Well, okay. How about Social Security? No, we can't touch that. How about Medicare? No, like you need to go down the list, right? And there's never anything that they will agree to actually cut, and it's a real problem. I think this is what we see in government is a reflection of the people, not like this government that's just out of control, not doing the will of the people. I really think that that's the case.
yeah, I agree. There's just as many socialists on the right as there are on the left. I think my whole vision is to get as many Thomas Masseys as we can in office to
Man,
strip everything down.
got one.
You know,
Out of
I
all
know,
those motherfuckers, we got one. That's it.
I know. It's so
And everybody
hard.
hates
And,
him too. That's a crazy thing. Everybody hates him. It is crazy.
I don't get it. And Trump tells people to hate him,
Hmm.
and they don't even think, I think the most popular comment I get on any of my posts about Thomas Massey is, well, what has he done?
What bills has
Well,
he passed? It's like, hello.
what bills has he passed? Well, I mean, he's brought so many to the floor that are America First bills. I mean, and the Fed and the Department of Education, uh, nationwide constitutional carry. I mean, we could just go on and just list all these bills that he's brought to the floor. And my retort to that is, well, why hasn't your congressman fought to help him get these bills to the floor? Because
Yep.
these are actually bills that would make America great again, if you want to use that phrase that they all love to use.
Yeah, and it's a weird thing. I think there's something psychological to this too, with the MAGA hats being red. Like, because I look at these people and I see straight commie up and down, left and right. Like, I don't see anybody who's for limited government or no government. I don't see anybody who's pro freedom. They basically, if you were to switch the parties and you were to just abstract everything and talk about policy positions, Republicans would be completely against it. But because it's linked to this sort of Trump cult of personality, like there's just no, and maybe that's what bothers me the most about the movement is there's no principles, there's no core, there's no there. They're not based off of anything other than whatever he says, and you see it online, right? Like the craziest thing in the world. Like you could just be like, we're starting World War III, and then every single MAGA person that leading up to the election was like, hell no, no more Middle Eastern wars. Now you saw it, right? Like overnight, it was just like, yep, go war. It's just
Yeah, it's like, well,
reprehensible.
don't. Yeah, do you want Iran to have a nuke? I mean,
Oh,
really? We've been hearing that since the 1990s, at least. And, for the people who heard that 20, 30 years ago to then parrot it again is just absolutely like it's zombie land. I don't get it. It's
yeah. And
crazy
so many
that people
people.
will repeat the same trope.
Yeah, and especially people like you and me who lived through the Bush years. It's like I've seen this movie before. Like there's no new tactics, there's no new strategy. It's just this is what it is. It's so transparent, and yet these people can't figure it out. It's very dismaying to me. So, speaking of that, though, I really want to get in the main topic here because I'm not sure if I mentioned to you, but I've said in my show a few times, like I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse. And so this Epstein thing, you probably saw. I've been unhinged. Like I'm normally like you've watched me before the Epstein stuff. I'm pretty reasonable. I don't like to be inflammatory. I don't like to talk a ton of shit. This one has got me pretty pissed off, and I started getting pissed off about it when Elon really broke up with Trump. When he posted the tweet, "Hey, gonna drop the bomb. Donald Trump is on the Epstein list." And then he followed up with that saying, bookmark this for later. The truth is going to come out. Right. And then do you remember what happened immediately after that? Do you remember the timeline?
Well, I mean, I know he walked it back
No, he didn't. He said, "Oh, maybe I went too far." He never
a little bit.
denied. He never denied the claim, and you saw what happened with those two. They kind of like went to their neutral corners and said, "We have some vested self-interest in at least publicly looking like we've patched this enough where we can go our separate ways." Right? This is like trying to be like an amicable public divorce. I think Trump knew that he needed Elon supporters' support, and I think Elon knew that he's got a lot of vested interest financially with SpaceX and other endeavors that rely on government contracts. So it made sense to me, but he didn't deny it. He didn't say, "Nope, I made a false claim." He just sort of said, "I went too far." But I was talking more like what happened immediately after that, like from a news cycle perspective. Do you remember that timeline?
We went to war in the
We
Middle East.
immediately went to war.
Immediately.
And
Yeah.
it was crazy because it looked very much to me like all of the Epstein stuff was being used against him. That the BB immediately said, "Oh, you just got added on the list. Remember, I got those files. I got a copy on my side over here." Like Epstein is alleged to have worked for Mossad. Everything was wired, and the allegations are that Israel has all the tapes, and so they can put their thumb and apply pressure. And it seems like from that moment on, it's been almost a humiliation ritual where Israel comes in and applies pressure and forces him to do something that he doesn't want to do. He even did that stupid, pathetic performance where remember when the planes were taking off when the ceasefire was announced and Israel's like, "Fuck it, we're gonna go bomb them again," and he was like, "You guys don't know what the fuck you're doing," and like having the giant hissy fit. It was totally performative, and you could see it was transparent that it was like he was just like, "Okay, well, I know my base doesn't want to do this, but I'm being forced to do it." And then he sent those weird tweets like, "I'm gonna talk to BB on the plane, and the planes will turn around. You're just gonna wave your wings at Iran and come back." Like all this crazy stuff. It just struck me. We've got a
Well, one
president.
thing that, go ahead.
I'll say, well, we've got a president who is not there, right? We had Biden who clearly wasn't there and something else was running him. And now you have Trump who is cognitively there, but clearly compromised. I think anybody who's rational and reasonable would come to the conclusion that they've got dirt on him. He's in the tapes and it's being leveraged against him. And our entire government is co-opted by a foreign nation. This is wild.
Yeah. And, it's never been more apparent than now. I don't know what the shift is, but people are not self-censoring anymore when it comes to Israel. I feel like, I mean,
Mm.
even yesterday, Tucker Carlson was giving a speech at what was it, the Student Action
Was
Summit.
is it CPAC or something going on?
Yeah, and he was talking about, I mean, he flat out said that, Epstein probably worked for Mossad. And 2 years ago, nobody would have come out and said that. But I think
Really?
people
Because
have
I
probably had
remember
enough.
that people were saying it in Trump's first term. Like this was something that was talked about openly, especially when he quote unquote killed himself. That was, that was, I thought, pretty openly talked about. Maybe I'm just swimming different circles. It's very weird through this
Yeah,
process.
I
I've been
feel like
called an
it was
anti-Semite for the
more.
first time in my life, which is wild.
Yeah, I feel like it was more, maybe because mainstream media has now shifted to, online platforms and more independent journalists are in the mainstream now, so more people are hearing about it. Maybe that's it.
I think X has something to do with it too. Getting the
Absolutely.
ownership transferred, and that comes with good and bad because there's some pretty gross stuff. There's some pretty legitimately anti-Semitic stuff that's on X right now. But you got to take the good with the bad with free speech or freer
Right.
speech.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy to be labeled anti Semitic just because you want peace, or you don't want to see, an entire region or nation of people genocided. And, to be labeled anti Semitic or, a Jew hater or something like that, just because, I mean, I personally believe that every human being is made in the image of and likeness of God. I think everyone has the inherent natural right to, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that extends to the whole world, in my view. We just have certain protections over here that are supposed to solidify that. But I think, as a natural law, all human beings are kind of on a even playing field when they draw their first breath. And so, just to see um, an entire region of people, being wiped off the map, is just awful. And the fact that if you say that, then somehow you're the one being hateful, it just doesn't pass the smell test for me.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and I think that that this is a tough issue because I think in America, particularly, we're not accustomed to any sort of violence. We're just not. We're soft. We don't deal with the type of world that the people over there deal with, largely our fault, right? From all the interventions and all the. I mean, look at Iran. Like the United States and the UK, like Great Britain at the time, completely did a coup and toppled their democratically elected government and installed a puppet dictator. And then and obviously Iraq. You have Afghanistan. Like we've been over there messing around for years, right? And I hear such like dehumanizing language from what's crazy to me, and I'm not a Christian, but the Christians are the worst in America. They are the turn it into a sea of glass, nuke the Middle East, just horrible things that are said that completely dehumanize these people. And the weirdest thing is, Ron Paul got this backlash, and I saw it recently, sort of rebooted with the Iran thing. Is like he would say, well, you know what? How would you feel if they did it to you? Right, the golden rule of foreign policy. Like what would how would Americans react if Iran dropped bunker busting nuclear bombs on an American nuclear facility? And like nobody even thinks like it is appalling to me, and it's ghastly.
Yeah, it's awful. I mean, the the whole thought of blowback to some people is like, how dare you imply that? Well, these are literally human beings that we're bombing. Of course, they're going to get pissed off, and their children are going to grow up to hate us. So, what do they think is going to happen? And I agree with you. I mean, I am a Christian, I'm Catholic. I see a lot of things online and people's reactions to this whole Israel Gaza thing that just blows my mind, from people who claim to be Christian and think that, you know, that the children who are dying deserve this somehow.
Yeah, it's terrible. I really really hate to see it, and I'm really glad that you're speaking out about it because I don't see a lot of it. I just see a lot of treating these people like they're They're just subhuman, and I think some of it's tied to religion too. I don't mean to indict every religion, but I think there is this thing in Christianity where it's like, well, Israel is God's chosen people, and therefore, dot dot dot, you can just do whatever you want. This is their land. They can it's total right of conquest, and if that means genociding another group, then so be it. That's just the way things shake out for them, and that's one of the reasons I bristle against religion sometimes. Although I'm not a huge critic, like I'm very pleased with what Christianity's brought to the West, but boy, that seems like certainly a negative aspect for some people.
Well, and I think it depends on the denomination that people are affiliated with, because people will interpret scripture differently depending on whose authority they listen to, or what denomination they find themselves interpreting scripture through. And so I think that's a big problem. Is you have a lot of um, different views in that regard, even within Christianity. But I think what people don't even realize is, they're like, oh, well, this is God's chosen people. Israel is bombing Christians, not just in Gaza, you know, and we are too. I mean, there's Christians in Syria, there's Christians, all over the Middle East. And so to say it's a religious war and then to kill tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Christians over the decades, um, it's mind blowing to me that this is just not even spoken about in Christian circles.
Well, I hope it changes, and I do want to pivot back to the first part of your question, which sort of centers on what rights do humans have? In your view, like where do our rights come from? What are they exactly? And like how do we know?
Well, like I said, I feel like, humans are born with a right to, defend their lives, to try to thrive, as best as possible. Their life, liberty, and property. Um, it's pretty simple. I feel like it's simple. I feel like some people make it out to be more difficult than it is. A lot of people say that they have a right to a lot of things that are not rights. Healthcare.
Mm,
We don't have a right to something that is requires the labor of someone else.
yes,
Um,
because why?
well, because then you're forcing your will on someone else.
You are essentially enslaving somebody else, right? Like you are conscripting
Exactly.
somebody else in your service, and that's irrational. And I was trying to sort of poke at this a little bit. You referenced it earlier. Rights are universal, right? Like every single person has rights and they must be negative in nature. It has to be an enumerated list of things that somebody else may not do to you. Because if you try to go with the positive rights theory, let's just imagine you and I are flying to Epstein Island and we crash. The plane is just you and me, right? The pilot's dead and we've got to survive. And it's just Amity and Brent. And we're like, hey, what are we going to do? You have a right to health care? It's like, well, if you do, then I have to provide it for you, or food or water, right? You could say, I need to sit here and just sun myself on this nice island of the Virgin Islands, and you can get coconuts and you can, kill things and bring it to me because I have a right to eat. And that's just absolutely irrational. Like rights have to be negative. They have to be protections as far as like what somebody else may not do to you without committing an ethical violation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't force. You have to be a willing participant in keeping someone else alive. You have the right to keep yourself alive, and that's basically it. Um, you can't force your will upon someone else.
Yep, I completely agree. And this is where I guess it breaks down for me with political action and government, right? Because if you truly believe that, right, like you literally have unalienable rights, and there's a enumerated list of things people can't steal from you, they can't rape you, they can't punch you in the face, they can't enslave you, they can't throw you in a cage. There's all these things they can't do. And then you turn around essentially and implicitly or explicitly say that people that work for government get extra rights that the citizens don't have, right? And that part, that's what breaks my brain. Like I don't understand that argument. Do you subscribe to that, or a version of that, or how do you view that with respect to government?
Um, Government employees getting more rights? Is that what you're saying?
For sure, yes. Like, for example, we talked about ethics must be universalized, right? There's everybody, by virtue of their humanity, has a list of things that may not be done to them. And so what we're saying with government is like, okay, well, that's true for everybody else except for government. They get to act with opposite ethics as everyone else. They can behave in a manner that if a citizen performed the exact same action would result in the commission of a crime, right? So that's what I mean. That's the dichotomy I'm talking about.
Well, so this is where it kind of gets dicey because when we're talking about individuals in government, of course, I'm going to use the phrase that the Democrats love to say when they were going after Trump is no one's above the law. And so, of course, when it comes to individuals, I think everyone should be treated the same, whether you're in government or out of government. However, when it comes to government itself, I do feel I'm definitely not an anarchist. I I do feel like as a citizen of this country, we're agreeing to be a citizen, and this is where I become a contradiction.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, because I do battle with this. So I think that our government. Um, I think that they are there to protect our life, liberty, and property. And so I'm okay with a national defense. Um, I think there should not be any bases overseas. I don't think we should go being, the world's police or the world's, democracy makers, as our government likes to call it. But if we're living within these borders that are defined borders in our nation, then, having a national defense is a no-brainer for me. Um,
How do you square the fact that in order to provide a national defense or have a national border or perform any sort of government services, you must first systematically violate everyone's rights first? Like, that's the contradiction that I struggle with.
I think as a citizen, we're agreeing to that. We're
But I'm
living under
telling
a
you, I
constitution.
don't agree though. Like, I'm telling you straight up, like, I don't agree, and this is the problem I have, right? So it comes down to, we talked earlier about sexual assault, right? Like, everybody understands that everyone has a right to say no to somebody having access sexually to them, right? That's called rape if you don't stop. If I say nope, and nobody can imply or infer consent. I can't just walk up to you and just start grabbing you and like there has to be consent involved, and it has to be explicit. And for it to be valid, there has to be terms and conditions, right? Like, and an ability to opt out, right? Like, abilities, like, I actually don't agree with you. Like, that has to be part of any sort of valid contract, and it just doesn't exist. What they say is like, we've drawn borders that they don't own, right? They don't own the property. The only valid borders exist around private property. So we said we draw some lines on the ground and a map, and if you cross them, we'll kill you. Or when we've encircled everybody, you have to follow this thing that we came up with, or else we'll kill you. Like, that's the agreement. And I don't see that as valid. Just because I fell out of my mom on this particular patch of dirt doesn't mean I consent. And the fact that I'm saying to you, using my volition and my willpower to say, like, I don't agree, I don't understand how they trump me, right? Like, how another individual can say, we get to set the rules, or I get to set the rules, and you are inferior to me, and you must, at the penalty of death, submit to my personal preferences. Like, to me, that's where it just completely goes off the rails.
Well, I think the Amish are a good example. They don't submit to government rule. They don't um, really subscribe. They don't pay into Social Security or anything like that. But I feel like if you want to have a community like that, I think that's totally valid, but you can't use the services as well that are, offered by the federal government. You can't have the protection of the military to defend your property, you know.
That's
So
not an
there's a
option,
little
though.
give.
I don't have an option, right? Like, they're going to take taxes from me. They're going to steal my money. and they're gonna force me at gunpoint, up to the penalty of death. Like, this thing I don't think people think through. When I hear people say, "Oh, it's not actually violent," and it's like, well, yeah, because most people comply because they understand that if they did actually say no and mean it, the government would actually kill them. And they're like, "Nah, you're
Oh, no, I
crazy.
get you on that.
They won't actually kill you." I'm like, "Yeah, they will, over a plant, a loose cigarette, not paying your taxes." Like, you can't just exist on your own property that you purchased with your money and be left alone, and that's a real problem.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree with you there. I feel like we don't live in a utopia. We don't live in an anarcho-capitalist society. So I am focused on making change within the society that we do live in. So, I that's one of the reasons I left the Libertarian Party, was because it was basically just, to me, I felt like I was just in this continuous supper club debating philosophy and
Yeah,
nothing was
yeah.
getting done. And so while the utopia of an anarcho-capitalist society is what I would love to see, we're not there. And so I have just resigned myself to do what I can within the society we have to reduce government as much as possible so that people can live as free as possible.
Got it, got it. By the way, I'm not trying to trap you with anything here. I was asking what you thought particularly. It's like an ethical question, so maybe I was doing the philosophical supper club thing. It's a common, as you're aware from being in the LP. I'm not, by the way. I'm not political action at all, but I do realize that they do like to put on their fedoras and have these types of discussions ad nauseum. And I agree with you. Like, something has to get done. You can't just sit around and talk about it. I guess I'm just a little bit. Um, Less confident that a government solution is there. And the reason I say that is because I am an empiricist. I look at the data and I have not seen government shrink ever one time, not even a little bit, right? It continues to get more tyrannical and it gets continually more expensive. I just, I feel like it's a little bit chaotic. You're tilting at windmills here, hoping that they're going to voluntarily shrink themselves. And I wish I saw a different way, but I don't. And I also, unfortunately, don't have a great answer for you. As like, well, what's the alternative? I don't know. Like, I'm making the arguments. I'm trying to get people to think about their actions and think about ethics and how they treat their neighbors and this abstraction called government. What you're sort of allowing them to do on your behalf. And boy, the arguments aren't landing. I'm going to keep trying though.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen the same, we spend more every single term. You'd think that we would be spending at least down to pre-COVID levels, now that that pandemic is, over. But we just keep spending more and more. I mean, I had this glimmer of hope that as Trump was campaigning on, making cuts and all this. I mean, I'm not naive. I know he spent a whole lot of money in his first term. He's a New York Democrat. He's a businessman who has, overspent many times in his own, personal business life, and filed bankruptcy because of it. So, he's not afraid of debt, obviously, but
Isn't his
the
nickname the
rhetoric
King of
was
Debt?
something like
That's
that.
one of them, I thought.
But, you know, I'd like to get, Dave Ramsey on his advisory board and,
Boy, Dave would have a
and,
coronary the first day. My God.
remind him that cash is king. But, so I'm not naive, but I was a little hopeful that, with Elon in there, with Doge, we would see some spending cuts. Even that, performative 9 billion that they pushed through the House. I mean, that's not even going to pass in the Senate. It's like they just want us to be memory hold and us forget about it. I haven't forgotten about it. But even $9 billion, I mean, they spend that in 12 hours.
Yeah, yeah, I was gonna say,
So
so it's actually 11. I've looked that up. It's 11 hours of
yeah, it's
operating the government.
literally nothing. So my hope is gone, as far as spending goes. But I just, these last few days with the whole Epstein Um,
Oh,
now
let's
with
talk
this
about
new,
this.
yes, I mean, this new post that Trump put out today, like just a few hours before we started recording, he's blaming it on Hillary and Obama and Biden and saying it's just like Russia, Russia, Russia. And it's, fake news and all this. And I mean,
He said,
really?
this is the crazy thing. Hold on, be real specific. He said that the actual evidence is fake. So when
Right.
he's admitting that the evidence is out there, the files are out there, there's tapes out there, all that stuff that people said didn't exist, and he's making a strategic pivot to say, "Hey guys, it's actually not real." And I think he's trying to get in front of it because I think he knows he's on it. Have you seen my conspiracy theory about that? About what I think
Um,
the tape that I think is at least a part of the Epstein files?
no, I don't think so.
You remember Russiagate, right?
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember there was an alleged tape associated with Russiagate about paying to have people number one on him?
Yeah.
The the guy who was sort of putting that thing forward swears that that tape exists. I believe that that tape probably does exist, and I bet it's probably from the Epstein collection. I went back and I looked at the news articles around it, and it makes so much sense right now. Elon claiming that he's in the Epstein files. Clearly the dude's going to be on video somewhere. I bet it's probably more than one tape. Because and this is a weird thing too. Like people say to me, like, "Well, we got the flight logs. He didn't go to Epstein's island." It's like as if that's the only property Epstein had. Do people forget that Epstein had a 51,000 square foot mansion in New York, right down the street, and he claimed to be his best friend for 15 years? It's like
Do you really think Trump had anything to do with underage girls, though?
100,000,000%. I would probably stake my life on it at this point.
I think that's where my battle is. I don't think he's innocent in what's going on. Obviously, he's the one that has the power to uncover everything. I
And he
think,
sure won't do it.
yeah. And, I keep battling this because, for example, I read Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the former press secretary from his first term. She put out an autobiography. And some of the kind of inside information she shared about Trump and his presidency and his personal life and, things he would do for troops without cameras. He just seems like such a nice guy on a personal level that
But
it's
she's a
really hard.
propaganda. She's a paid propagandist. I mean, the press secretary's job is propaganda. And you know that once they leave office, she's trying to sell a book. And by the way, I'm not sure if you know this, but this is how politicians and people that are associated with the administration get bribed, right? So there's things that people promise to do before they go in the office. And guess what they do? They go on speaking tours where they're getting paid something ridiculous like $20 million for a 15-minute speech. They put out these books, they write these books that they don't actually write. And then there's these organizations that buy them all up and just send the money directly to these people. Like, I don't trust anybody associated, particularly somebody whose job is to be a paid propagandist. So anyway, sorry, that's my rant.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I still have this, I have intuition, and my intuition is that um, he's that's just not his mo. But that doesn't
Why
mean
though?
I
I got to
feel
understand because if it's I mean, but if it's
it's
just intuition, that's fine. But I'm trying to figure out because I'm an empiricist, like I said. I look at the data, and I'm a very good pattern recognition person, and I'm seeing all of the signs pointing directly to that. So why do you believe that? If it's just intuition, fine. And then the other question is, what's the alternative hypothesis for his behavior around this? Then
intuition, and like I said, just reading about his personal life. I feel like I'm a good judge of um, character. Character's the wrong word because I'm not saying he's okay. Maybe I am saying that. When I see him with children, with his grandchildren, with Elon's kid, with anybody, when there's school children in the Oval to sign a bill about keeping boys out of girls' locker rooms, he loves kids and not in a creepy
maybe a
way.
little
You know
too
what I'm
much.
saying? Yeah,
I
no.
mean,
Um,
by the way, I'm not
so
saying
it's
it.
just an intuition. It's just a
And
It's
that's fair.
just,
And if that's the case,
yeah.
I have no intuition. I'm like autistic as hell. I do pattern recognition. I look at the data and it's all pointing directly at it. And so a couple of things. Like you talk about his character. He's quoted as saying Jeffrey Epstein is a great guy, right? Great guy. And then he immediately follows up to say, and he loves beautiful women and he likes them very, very young, just like me. That's a very weird thing to say about somebody who is clearly a monster. I mean, there's no question that Jeffrey Epstein is a incredibly terrible human being. And Donald Trump knew him for 15 years. And when he made that statement, he had been close friends with him for at least a decade. And he knew all these things. Hard to say somebody's got great character when they say something like that about a person like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like I said, character was probably the wrong word because I'm on the fence about that as well. I just feel like as far as kids go, that's where my intuition lies.
Yeah, yeah. By the way, I'm not
But it's
claiming that he's like with young kids. Like, I think what's the most likely is it's going to be that 14 to 17-year-old range, right? Like, it's going to be post-pubescent. It's not the technical pedo thing probably doesn't apply, but I think that was probably a situation. Some 17, a 16-year-old here, like. And I think that he was compromised. I think that he was recorded. By the way, have you seen that MSNBC or CNBC thing where they no, maybe it was just NBC where they followed him with Jeffrey Epstein and they watched them partying together?
I've seen clips. I haven't
That's
seen.
just a really. I would love to have somebody who has some intuition look at that exchange between the two and them laughing and sort of like in that club scene. It really deeply disturbed me, and I'm not even that very intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I haven't seen that. But you ask what do they have or why is he not releasing this list or prosecuting people or what do they have on him? That's a great question, but I feel like it all ties back to Mossad. And you know
Clearly, yeah. So the question is,
and
what did he
he
do though?
received $230 million in campaign contributions from
APAC.
Mary Adelson, and I just feel like he's bought and paid for, and we're seeing it in real time that he's clearly not working for us.
Got it. So is your claim then that because he took so much money from Israel during his reelection bid, that the release of these files would implicate Israel, and therefore he's got to cover for them?
Yeah, I feel like I mean I can't say that obviously with certainty, but it is definitely a hypothesis that we should explore for sure.
Yeah, I'd love to. Problem is, we can't explore anything, and that's what's been the frustrating thing for me is that you've got. Uh, and this is the thing that bothers me too about this. And we talked about character. I know you're talking about categorization or characterization of him as a pedo. Get that, but I'm talking. This is a character thing for him. He's clearly lying, right? Like this has been a lie after a lie after a lie after a lie, and we can't get any data. So we have to look at external sources. Like one thing I bring up a lot is that J.P. Morgan had to pay almost $500 million. Like, think about this: $500 million settling a class action lawsuit brought by the Epstein victims, as well as a separate case brought by the U.S. Virgin Islands for a human trafficking law violation. And there's no list that there was. I mean,
Right.
the
Oh, there's
tally is
definitely a list.
yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
he's just literally pissing in everyone's face, saying "fuck you." Like, there's not a list, and the worst part about it is that this is a crime. There's no way to cover. There's no way to spin this differently. I've asked people a lot: will you stand for impeachment? Will you call for impeachment over this? And I've even had Josie, redhead libertarian. She's like, "What do you mean? It's not a high crime and misdemeanor." I'm like, "Hold on a second. You're telling me that the commission or orchestrating a criminal conspiracy to obstruct justice using multiple federal agencies and millions of dollars to cover up for the largest child sex trafficking ring in history that we know about, which was also very clearly a blackmail operation for our political apparatus at the highest levels. That's not a high crime and misdemeanor worthy of impeachment, I have a hard time believing that. And I'm really frustrated that more people aren't calling for it, because I'm screaming like, guys, like, we should have an investigation. He should be impeached and he should be convicted, and then wood chipper feet first if convicted, because this is terrible.
The problem is, not only would he need to be impeached, but probably half, if not more, of our elected officials in DC
Why is this a
would,
problem?
well, no, it's not a problem,
Okay.
but who's going to impeach him?
Oh,
Because
that's a
they're guilty too.
for sure, but there's got to be some, like, there's some level, and I think we're going to get there, where it's so much public backlash. People are so pissed off about this that they've got to demand some action. Like, that there's got to be some accountability. And I think this is one of these things that as soon as you start pulling a couple of strings, the whole thing is going to come down. There's not a way to approach the Epstein files in a way that's like, oh, you get this one little, like the binders. They were like we already knew that. We had the flight logs. Nobody cares. But you give any piece of substantial information, the public gets a hold of it. It's just another thing that they can piece this whole picture together with, and the whole house of cards is going to come down. It's going to cause more questions, which is why Trump wants to shut everybody up, because everyone has all these questions. He's giving nothing, and people are like, just give me something. And as soon as you give something, like I said, like, you just pull that thread and the whole thing's coming down. I really believe this is the end of his administration. I don't see him completing this term at all. I don't see him making it to the midterms.
We need a hero from within.
Mm.
I think it's going to be, if my prediction is correct, it's going to be Dan Bongino.
God, I hope so.
He is the only one I see that's in the administration who I feel has the integrity to he's either going to resign and,
He said
sing
today
like a
he's not
bird.
resigning. Do you see that video he posted? He posted a
No, I
weird,
didn't
like,
see that.
minute long video where he said, "I'm not resigning," and then he started making these weird cryptic statements, and he was saying, it's like, the people that are in there somewhere. I can't remember how he phrased it, but he's like, history is calling. Pick up the phone. Like, you have the opportunity to do something, do the right thing, and basically saying you can get a lawyer, get a whistleblower protection. I'm like, holy shit! And so it's clearly not going to be Dan, because he's not doing anything, but somebody.
That's
He's
crazy. No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, go look at. I'll try to
There's
find that for you.
also there's also people like, I don't know if you're familiar with Matt Strickland in Virginia.
I'm not.
Okay, so he ran for election. He ran a business during COVID that he refused to shut down, and he lost his liquor license. He almost lost his business. He was vindicated in the end, but he's been speaking out a lot. He's worked for the federal government. People like that, I'm not personally calling for violence, but I feel like we're at a point where people like him, people like, there will be enough strong men who are sick of the bullshit in Washington, who will start a revolution, whether it's violent or peaceful. I don't know. And I don't want violence, but
Same.
we have to have enough people who are willing, if it comes to that, to dismantle our government, either from the inside out or externally, just get rid of it and start over.
Yeah, and that's why I posted a tweet earlier today, and I was like, "Hey, America!" This is after, by the way, the wall of text that Trump posted. I said, "So everyone, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do?" Like I
Yeah.
said, I'm
And
not advocating for violence. Like, literally, people like, "What are you going to tweet about it? What are you going to do?"
yeah, and I feel like, as a female, a very petite female, I'm not going to be, leading an army to go, topple DC. And like I said, nor would I want violence. That's not what I'm calling for. But, you know, if we can get more people, more brave men in office who are willing to, not listen to the deep state, not listen to Israel, and just fight for we the people, that would be great. But I don't know if we have enough people willing to fight that fight.
Yeah, especially after Jan 6, because I could see a world where like everybody strap up, get your ARs, get a bunch of magazines, get your plate carriers, get 20,000 people to descend on DC and be like, yo, knock, knock, we're here. Let's have a talk about the Epstein files, right? But I don't even see people doing that. It, I don't know what to do, man. Like it feels very hopeless at this point. People are going to
Yeah, I
tweet, the
feel like
government's going to
right
ignore
after.
everyone, and then just like, well, I guess we just business as usual. Hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after January 6th, so many people who did nothing were stuck in solitary confinement. They had, no due process. They were, no speedy trial. They were just holed up for years and lost everything until Trump pardoned them. And, people see that, and it was almost like a test, kind of like COVID was I feel like COVID was a test of, how much can we, make them
It was a shit test.
endure.
It was a shit test.
Yeah. And January 6th is the same way. Are they going to stand for it? Now we show them we can put you in solitary confinement with no due process and no speedy trial. And so that's going to scare other people off from actually taking action.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of people cheer for it. And this leads me to maybe another hot topic where we might disagree is immigration. I see very clearly now that the people that are more on the right are tending to love the three-letter agencies now, as long as they're ICE. And that's very weird to me.
You.
But
Okay.
so anyway, wanted to transition. I'll edit this later. Want to talk about ICE and immigration.
Yeah, I am actually, I don't know where you stand on that. I am for kind of closed borders, but not really. I'm definitely not wide open borders like most libertarians or like the libertarian platform is. I think a lot of libertarians are moving towards closed borders. My reasoning for that is the immigrants coming in now are almost all receiving welfare of some sort when they come in illegally. Um, they're given, food, housing, shelter, everything. And I'm actually for the Ellis Island type immigration. I think if someone can support themselves, has no violent criminal history, and no communicable diseases, then I say, come here, make your life, do your thing, start your business, go work for somebody. I don't care. I think everyone should be welcome. My dad was an immigrant. My dad's from England. People seem to think, oh, white immigrants are okay, so it's different. It's not different. My dad was an immigrant, and I think anyone that wants to come live the American dream should absolutely have that choice. I don't think it should happen while we have a welfare state where, immigrants are given all these benefits. Yeah, that's basically my take on it. I think we have a big enough problem that we need to solve and then reset, if that makes sense.
It does, and I'm open to that argument. Like I've heard it a million times. Like you can't have open borders and a welfare state. That may or may not be true. One of the things that makes me bristle a little bit is that people focus a lot on the immigrant community as far as what do they take, and I don't even have the data in front of me as far as how much assistance they're receiving on a local, state, federal level. But I guarantee you it's a hell of a lot more than the corporate welfare that's received by these large corporations, right? And nobody has a
Yeah, I
problem
don't
with
think
that.
any
Like
of it should exist.
everybody's fine with massive, way more fraud. And I mean, it's fraud. It's like it is cronyism. It is rent seeking. It is this is welfare for large corporations with suits, and everybody accepts that. Everyone's okay with that. So I don't see the reason why people focus on poor people that want to come here, and most of them, you look at this data, I do know most of them come and they come to work, right? They're out in the fields, they're just picking fruit, they're processing our animals, they're doing the jobs that Americans don't want to do, and they're doing it super cheap. And a lot of them establish families here, multi-generational, they become American citizens, and like the story, right? And so I don't really have a problem with immigrants, and I actually bristle quite a bit at seeing the raids. Right, we just watched in California
It's horrifying.
Black Hawk helicopters, Humvees, and these armed, ICE agents raiding people who were just at their job. They weren't. I mean, it's like they're not. They're not like sitting around like eating ho hos and watching Maury Povich. They're out and doing horribly difficult jobs in the sun, for very little pay, and you're attacking them. And then like the thing that was really rich to me is like when they start throwing rocks at the Humvees and stuff. It's like, well, they're attacking them. This is attempted murder and the pearl clutching around this stuff. And it's like, my God. And this is one of my problems with the Republicans. I feel like I'm shitting Republicans the whole time, but they're the ones that will say this sort of trite trope about, well, the Second Amendment was made so we can ward off a tyrannical federal government. And it's like, well, number one, you guys never use that. And if anybody ever does, like, you demonize them for it. Like, then it's like, we must protect the troops. We must protect the ICE agent, the cops, everybody else. It's a weird thing that the Republicans have going on. That sort of, they idealize, and they sort of like, your uncle will post some crazy shit on Facebook about, taking down redcoats, and we kicked your ass in World War II, and we're fighting the government, and how dare you keep your hands off my AR, and all this bullshit. But when it actually comes down to a real person, like defending themselves, because I mean, frankly, it's an assault. Like, these people were just minding their own damn business and they were assaulted, and everybody's got a right to self-defense. And if somebody got shot doing that, I would have supported I would have been on the side of the immigrant. I'm sorry. Like they were just minding their own damn business.
Yeah, I think we're actually on the same side of this. That's where
Cool.
my libertarianism comes in. You mentioned everybody's okay with, corporate welfare, and not everybody is, because I'm not. I don't think any of it should exist. I think, nobody has the right to my labor for their benefit without my consent. I believe in charity. I have compassion for people who have true needs, and I think that that is done better individually and through subsidiarity. And so, I don't think the government is very effective in doling that out. They take enough off the top, and there's enough fraud that they are not. They're not who I would employ, if I was running a charitable organization. So as far as welfare goes, government shouldn't be involved at all. When it comes to the current deportation system, I actually caught a lot of flack on X recently with a post where I was saying, yes, if we had, the last several years, we had all these people coming in who literally just came in and moved into hotels, and the government's been paying for them the whole time. They haven't tried to get employment. Sure, deport them. The violent criminals, deport them. But people, just like you said, just doing their job. I made an example and everybody really piled on me about it, but I don't care. I have, a cleaning lady, and a couple of her employees are not documented. I don't ask any questions. They do a great job. I know she pays them well because we've had conversations, and everybody's like, oh, you just want cheap labor cleaning your house. No, like, I'm not going to let someone do a job for me for less than what I think they deserve. If that were the case, I would not employ this person, if I thought she was employing slave labor or, cheap labor. I pay people what I feel that they deserve to be paid. So, people were just saying, oh, you're just trying to keep your cheap labor. No, I think that, these people who have worked in my home, who were brought here by their parents at 4 and 5 years old, have no connection to their home country. Where are they going to be deported to? And our government does not make it easy for them to become citizens.
Oh, do you know how deep that rabbit hole goes?
Oh, yeah, it is so difficult. And, people are just like, well, if they want to be here, they should just, become citizens. Well, they've been here since before they can even remember, because they were babies and, toddlers, and they can't even get in the line because their parents didn't bring them the right way.
Well,
So
not only that, but
it's a
like,
catch-22.
yeah, this is like another stupid boomer con, trope, which is like, oh, they're getting in line and come the right way. And it's like, do you understand the way the United States, issues its, slots for green cards? It is the same number for every country on the world. Iceland gets the same number of slots as Mexico. And the average time that it takes if you were to immigrate legally into the United States from Mexico is almost 70 years. That's how, if you're not have no sponsorship, you have nothing, like if you just try to apply and get in line, it's like 70 years. Of course, the people are going to cross the border. You would, and so would I.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, for those who are just, painting our houses and cleaning them and, picking crops, they're doing these jobs because it's what they're able to find without documentation. Some of them even have, social security numbers that they've received for, however they've received them. And they're getting taxes taken out,
Hmm.
and they're not even getting the benefits. They'll never receive any benefits for those taxes that are being, the payroll taxes that are being taken from them. So, when Trump talked about ending Obama's Dreamer program, that was something that I really was against, because these kids, they have nowhere to go. They have been in the American school system. They've learned English. Um, our country is the only one they know. And there's no reason to deport them anywhere. I think, alligator Alcatraz
It's
is deplorable.
gross. So gross.
Um, the fact that people are profiting off merchandise for concentration camps in Florida is disgusting to me. Um, it's just it goes back to the same thing I was talking about with the Middle East. These are human beings with, you know, real feelings and real lives, and they're just trying to survive like the rest of us.
Yeah, and that's another area where I see Christians falling down in America a lot. I see so much hateful rhetoric, like the Gunther Engelman guy. That guy's terrible. Like he constantly posts about Jesus, but at the same time, he will just say the most ghastly things about a whole number of issues. It's not just him. I see it all the time, and I just don't see any sort of empathy or humanity acknowledged in these people.
Yeah, I just try to focus on um, remembering that every human has dignity and worth, and I just think we can definitely um, do differently for them when we remember that.
Yeah, it's really good to be mindful of that, and I wish more people would do that. Yeah, the other thing that bothers me too about the whole immigration debate is the fact that the Republicans are sort of deploying socialist tactics. It's the same thing as the tariffs too, which is like, like we can centrally plan the economy. We're smart enough, right? Like Trump knows what the interest rate should be. Jerome Powell's an idiot, and he knows what the correct interest rate is going to be, and we know the correct number of laborers that should be allowed within the country, right? Like we know what that is, and we know what the correct market rate for labor should be, right? And then we don't like like if you know anything about economics, like no, the market sets that. We have supply and demand curves. And you can fiddle with things. You can put all these tariffs on products that are coming across the border and say that you want to protect yourself and you want to make sure that prices are high, as if that's a good thing. And you want to tax Americans like that's a good thing. But ultimately, that's a socialist argument, right? And this is one of the things that bothers me about the Republicans of today is that they've taken things where the old school Republicans used to be more, even Milton Friedman, Thomas Sowell, they would have some understanding of economics and how centrally planning economies are bad. And it seems like now they all are dyed in the wool commies. And I don't like what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and I'm no economist, so I can give my opinion on this. As far as tariffs go, um, they're not ideal, but I wouldn't mind seeing some tariffs if it was what fueled our economy and taxes, income tax was gone. If it was a replacement, if we had to have one or the other. But the problem is, we had campaign promises of cutting income tax, and, fine if you're going to replace it with tariffs, which is also a tax, obviously, because, consumers end up paying for the increased prices. I see it would be more positive only because as a consumer, you can choose what you buy and don't buy. For income tax,
Not really, right?
well,
Because
but you
if
can.
nothing is made here, there's no way that you can choose to purchase things from here, right?
No, all I mean is, as a consumer, if you don't want to buy if a phone ends up being $5,000 because it has, ridiculous tariffs on it, you don't have to buy that phone to survive. I mean, people will argue, well, you do need a smartphone to survive in the United States. Well, I mean, you honestly don't. If you're talking about living, breathing, drinking and eating food, you don't need a smartphone. So, yes, to live in a civilized society, it's going to be a burden. But if we don't have income tax and we have, extra income because of that, and we're, seeing 40% more in our pockets, then, we can afford a little bit higher prices. I don't think either is good, but since we don't live in a utopia, we do have to run our government somehow.
Well, I'm going to tell you why this isn't going to work and why it will never happen. Is that you've got most people, I don't know if you're aware of this, most people in America don't pay income taxes. It's a very small number of people at the top. It's all stratified towards the top that end up paying the vast majority of income taxes. Most people don't pay it, right? So what you will see with tariffs is that even if you took away the income tax, you're going to have a very regressive tax system then. So the rich will benefit in an outsized fashion, and the poor now are suddenly going to be paying that burden of the tax, and by virtue of everything being more expensive, and substantially, by the way. If you look at the federal budget and the number, the dollars of outlays that have to be covered by tariffs, like the rise in cost is going to be insane, and the poor people are barely hanging on as it is. And so I think you would, even if you could implement it, you would have such shrieks from the poor and the middle class and the Democrats, and it would just be completely reversed, right? So I think what we're going to end up having, and I don't say this with any sort of pleasure, is we're going to get both forever. We're going to have tariffs and we're going to have income taxes, and that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, well, that's the problem with government is anytime something is implemented, it's, even if it's supposedly temporary, like the income tax was supposed to be, it's always permanent. And I totally agree with you on that. I think my vision, which is kind of, when I start thinking about, well, if we got rid of income tax and only had tariffs, I would also slash government to the point where we are literally only funding a defense at home. So I would fund commerce, treasury, the judiciary, and defense. And literally everything else would be gone. So, we wouldn't need too many tariffs to cover those expenses. But of course, it's not going to happen.
For sure, and I'm open to that argument, at least as a temporary fix. If we just magically people supported that and we could do that, that would be great. I think the boy the problem with that though, and this kind of goes back to why I'm an anarchist. I think is that the Lord of the Rings. And I talk about this all the time. Like I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but Tolkien was an anarchist, and he wrote the Lord of the Rings with the ring of power being a metaphor for government. And the movie makes so much sense if you understand that, right? Like like no human can wield it. That's why I don't know if you know. That's why a hobbit had to carry the ring. Humans couldn't wield it. It drives them mad with power, like literally like Gollum, completely crazy. We're not able to deal with it, and the only solution is throwing the ring into the fire of Mount Doom, right? And if you even remember, it's so funny. I feel like Americans are, particularly libertarians, are in this phase where in that movie where the guy had the ring, he got it from Sauron. He's ready to throw it in the fire, and they're screaming at him, "Throw it in the fire!" And he looks at them as he's holding
I'm
it, and he's
sorry.
like,
I gotta stop you. The only reason I'm chuckling is because the only thing so I'm not a big movie buff when it comes to like Lord of the Rings and all that. The only thing I know about Lord of the Rings is that Thomas Massie calls DC Mordor.
Does it for a reason.
I've never seen the movie. Or I take that back. I've tried to watch it and I fall asleep every time I do. So
Oh boy, it's fantastic, and maybe if you
I need
watched
to
it through
try
that
again.
lens and you paid attention to the metaphor through the movie, you would get some pleasure. But
Yeah,
essentially,
for
there's a
sure.
scene where they fight Sauron, who's like the Dark Lord that forged the rings, right? And the only way to destroy the ring is to throw it into the fire of Mount Doom where it was made. And so they finally kill him, and they take the ring to throw it in there. And the guy's standing there; he's got it in his hand, and the other guy is just screaming at him. It's like, throw it in the fire. And he looks at him and he smiles and he goes, no, and he just like people will not let go of the ring. And I don't see anything good coming from it. So even if you were able to roll it back, government is like slash it to the bone and we're funded by tariffs. I think what's going to happen is that you're just going to see it grow, right? Like that, as soon as you give, like I said, as soon as you accept the premise that some human beings have extra rights and are better than other humans and can murder other humans legally, like if you accept that, even if it's for, well, there's a couple things that I like, it's not going to stop there. Because we started this country with the experiment in the most limited government ever, and we've now created like the largest, most tyrannical government in human history, and it's only been a few generations, right? And
And
so,
our our population is the least healthy, the least educated. Um, the it's crazy how we have this massive government that is supposedly helping the people, and we're sick and dying, and our IQs seem to be getting lower with every generation. I mean, and I'm not dissing like younger generations. I'm just saying, the more we get into this experiment of the United States, um, our
a lot of that's
education,
intentional too. A lot of that
is
was
failing us. Oh,
intentional.
absolutely. Yeah, I think our public school system is just um, it's on purpose and should definitely be abolished.
It's so weird though, because people don't want it. And I think a lot of it has to do with just like we talked about, like the school system itself is just a little mini indoctrination center. Like if you can, the government knows that if you can catch kids early and you're like, you make them stand and chant, magic words to a flag and have pictures of dear leader up on the wall, and you get to, instill this sort of unidimensional worldview, and that government is always good and war is awesome and all these things that everyone just kind of gets fed to them, like you can control them forever. It's
Well,
like the, have you ever watched, sorry, have you ever watched Stefan Molyneux's video, The Story of Your Enslavement? If not, you should. It's so great. It talks about human farming over the years. So I talk about like direct human ownership and actual like chattel slavery, and how the lords of Europe and the enclosure movement, and then basically now we're at the stage where we're all just tax cattle on this farm, and it's much easier to get the other cattle to keep us in check. So if you say something out of line, if you don't stand and salute the flag, and if you don't like all these things, right? Like then the government doesn't even have to apply force. It's just social pressure, it's social cohesion. And people they basically rein you in and pull you back, and they don't have to do a thing other than get you in an indoctrination center.
Oh yeah. And even 35 or so years ago when we were in school back in the 80s, um, they had levels of classes, at least in my public school, where the smart kids were in the smart kids class, and the normal kids were in the normal kids class, and the dumb kids were in the dumb kids class. And we had these classes where I was in classes where we were taught to excel, and we were encouraged to be creative and find ways to you know I guess channel the creativity that we had in our minds. And now everybody is in the same class. It doesn't matter what your IQ is, it doesn't matter what your abilities are. You're just put in there to become a worker. And I think, critical thinking is not encouraged anymore. And I see
Oh,
it in the
beyond
workplace.
that, I will say it is actively discouraged.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I see it in the workplace. I have um, managed people for much of my adult life, and I the ones who do use critical thinking are the ones who excel. Um, and then there's people who, literally just push a button, and you have to teach them which button to push, you know? And I feel like our public school systems they're just putting out button pushers.
Yeah,
And
George
it's really
Carlin has
sad.
got a great sorry to interrupt. George Carlin's got a great bit about that, about how they don't want anyone who's smart and is a critical thinker. They want people just smart enough to be able to push the buttons and pull the levers once they get out and have a job, and just passively accept the shitty quote unquote American dream that they were fed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the people who excel in this country, like the Elon Musks, like, and it's funny, a lot of people who are successful and innovative, never even graduated from college. It's not about the education. Yeah, I didn't either. It's not about the education. It's about the critical thinking and, utilizing your noggin you know, to innovate. So I, I think that, our public school system is it's broken. It's beyond repair.
Yeah, and you call out something important too, is I think is that university system too, because that's where a lot of the mega indoctrination comes from, and there's this social pressure. And this is, I know you grew up like I did in the same time frame. It was always like you have to go to college or you're going to fail. Like you're like, oh, what are you going to dig ditches the rest of your life? And it's like uh, college now is just, it seems like it's setting people back as opposed to setting them up for success. You have these people that are taking these bullshit degrees that don't have anything to do. There's no value in the real world to taking, like African teapot studies or something. I mean, like it's just outrageous some of these degrees these people get. And they end up with $250,000 in debt, and they're behind the people that just went out and got a vocation like welding or auto mechanic or whatever, right? Like, or people that just were entrepreneurs and started businesses. They're way further ahead, and they didn't get that mega indoctrination from the colleges, which is like bonkers.
Yeah. And, I was very fortunate. My father was an engineer, but he never went to college. He was actually brought over here from England by way of Canada for a few years. He was hired by Stanford University as, a kid that had no college degree, but he was hired as an engineer and an inventor on a genius visa. And he eventually became a citizen, but he taught me from the get go that I didn't have to go to college to succeed. And if I wanted to become something that needed a degree, such as, a doctor, an attorney, something like that, then by all means go. But he didn't encourage it just to go to college. He was hired after Stanford University. He was hired by the state of Virginia, and he worked as an engineer for them for 30 years. I went out of high school with this mindset that, I don't know what I want to do, but I don't want to go to college. So, I became a business owner in my 20s and invested in some properties, and I was a landlord at a very young age. And then, I got hired by someone who gave me a chance and mentored me. And now, I'm in the finance world and manage people and, manage accounts for a worldwide publicly traded company. And if I were to be replaced, I would have to I would have to replace someone um, in my position with a master's in accounting, but they didn't require it for me. So, you know, it's just sometimes you just have to um, have that mindset that higher education is not required to succeed. And I've done just fine, and I never had any student debt I had to pay off.
Yeah, same. Like my story is I went in the military though. I learned tech stuff and I've been in, quote unquote big tech for a very long time now. And around a bunch of people that got master's degrees in computer science and stuff, and I don't got shit. Like I, you can learn it, and I think Elon was one of the pioneers, and so I think Google was pretty good too about being ahead of the curve and being like, look, if you're going to do engineering, like software engineering or something like that, like if as long as you can demonstrate the skills, come on in, like it's fine. And I think the whole paradigm is shifting now to where people are really realizing how big of a scam college is. Unfortunately, I don't think they've got a lot of great answers, though. The economy is so terrible for young people right now, and
It
everybody
is.
thinks they can be an influencer. It's like you're gonna be a social media star. It's like you're not. Like, have you seen some of those polls? Like these people exiting high school saying what their career choice is going to be, and it's like something crazy. Like 65% of them say they want to be social media influencers. It's like you can't all be social media influencers, people.
Yeah. Well, I have a millennial and a Gen Z kid, and I mean, neither one of them are homeowners yet. I mean, I was a homeowner at 23, and, they're both older than that. And it's just, the economy is just shit. And they have good jobs, but uh, I don't know.
About to get worse too. You saw that Trump is about ready to yeet old Jerome Powell, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So I think we have the money printer is about to go burr again, and we're all about to become a whole lot poorer, and things are going to become a whole lot more expensive. So buckle up for that one.
nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, well, is what it is. I don't want to end on that depressing note, so I want you to tell me something. Like, what do you think as an antidote, or not the antidote, like you have the magic bullet, but an antidote to making people better and society better?
Well, I definitely believe that we need to change culture before we change the government, and government will change with it. So, my focus, even though I'm always giving my hot takes on politics and getting involved in political activism, my first goal is just to meet people where they are, and try to change people's culture before I try to, you know, force any political solution on anyone.
Boy, that's really wise, a wise thing to say, and I say the same thing, which is like you've got to fix yourself, one person at a time. You can't be pointing at somebody else and saying, "Hey, politician, fix my life. Government, come fix my life." You're going to fix all of society's problems. I think it's like you said, downstream. Politics is downstream from culture, and until we get better as people, like boy, there's no hope for anybody.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, hey, that's a great place to leave it. We're about at time anyway. Boy, I really thank you for pulling up, and I love your like said hot takes. I really enjoy watching your Twitter feed. And I was really happy to get you on the show. So why don't you tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, they can find me on X at Amity 13.
Awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks so much.